car brain, windshield bias, road rage, motor normativity. You hear this kind of language more and more, and I do support people spending more time examining things that are wrong with society. But is car brain a real thing? And maybe even zooming out a bit, what exactly is it? So, we're going to do some exploration today and look at what the research actually says. But I do want to acknowledge that this is something that I've gotten a lot of viewer suggestions to cover, not the least of which is from Greg on my Patreon, who has had his share of run ins with this particular disorder. And he wonders just what is it that makes drivers throw common sense rules of decorum, manners, and respect out the window when they get behind the wheel of a 2-ton machine. So first, let's define what we're talking about. A lot of the discussion around this kind of thing frames it as road rage, which for me conjures up images of aggressive freeway driving, stuff like tailgating, aggressive passing maneuvers, brake checking, flashing your high beams. To me, though, road rage is just one manifestation of the larger thing that I actually want to talk about. What I'm really interested in is the extent to which you not only behave differently, but you become someone different with a different set of values and really a different set of morals when you're behind the wheel of a car. Some of the inspiration for today's topic actually comes from this book, Life After Cars, from the people behind the War on Cars podcast. And yes, this is a book recommendation. I'll leave a link down in the description, but the very cool, very urbanist thing to do is buy a physical copy at your local independent bookseller. Anyway, there's so much good content in this book, but the piece that's relevant for this video is a short section in the Cars Ruin Society chapter. It points out that we have a lot of different terminology that tries to get at this phenomenon of how we become different people when we're driving, and it's full of interesting citations that will definitely lead you down a research rabbit hole if you're so inclined, which I am. In particular, this piece out of the UK from Ian Walker, Alan Tapp, and Adrian Davis titled Motonormativity: How Social Norms Hide a Major Public Health Hazard. So here's yet another piece of vocabulary for you, and I think motonormativity is fine in an academic context as far as describing the wider societal ramifications of accepting car dependence and car centricity as a given. But for what we're talking about today, I really do like the term car brain. It's just succinct and to the point. But the study asks an interesting question, which is this: do we have different standards for moral behavior when cars are involved than when they are not? And what this gets at is the extent to which we permit bad behavior related to cars in a way we never would for anything else, and why that is. The study compared people's responses to two similar statements, like people shouldn't drive in highly populated areas where other people have to breathe in car fumes, versus people shouldn't smoke in highly populated areas where other people have to breathe in cigarette fumes. Basically testing for how people's attitudes and assumptions change just based on whether there was a car involved. I'm actually going to leave you in suspense as to what they found because, I have a little plot twist coming, and like any good research, the findings raise interesting new questions just as much as they answer existing ones. So stay tuned. Lots of ways to support what I do and stay connected. 2025 really was a great year for the channel. I got to meet so many of you in person: Pittsburgh, Edmonton, Chicago, San Diego, of course. And the year was kind of bookended with events I did with Doug and Sarah from the War on Cars. We drew 1,000+ people, not just in New York, but at Town Hall in Seattle, if you can believe it. Never underestimate the power of 1,000 rabid urbanists all in one room at the same time. The energy is just nuclear level. Okay, here's the piece of research I really want to highlight. It's from Dr. Tara Goddard, now at Cal Poly SLO, I believe, and it's called Windshield Bias, Car Brain, Motonormativity, Different Names, Same Obscured Public Health Hazard. Dr. Goddard has been doing amazing research work for a while now. Link to this one is down in the description, and she's a good follow on BlueSky too. The paper basically attempts to recreate Dr. Walker's UK study to see how well the findings are replicated when questions are tested on a US-based survey group. You know, for some reason, academic papers by people who actually devote their lives to a particular field of study just don't get the same number of views as YouTube videos by people who don't really know what they're talking about. I don't know what to tell you. I don't make the rules. But you should go read this, and I understand academic papers are an acquired taste. They have a particular style and format that's almost designed to repel the lay reader. This includes a literature review up at the top that is supposed to show that the researcher has done their homework and reviewed and understood related research on the topic. It can be a bit dry and perfunctory, but there are usually some really good breadcrumbs in here that can deepen your understanding of the topic. So, for example, Coogan et al., examining behavioral and attitudinal differences among groups in their traffic safety culture, uses a sort of cluster analysis to show that idiotic drivers are not a monolith. The study actually finds three distinct groupings. One, overly confident risk seekers. Two, people who like to drive fast and invent post hoc justifications for it. And my favorite, people who just opt out of the shared values of society in general. Also amazing, Delbosc et al. Dehumanization of cyclists predicts self-reported aggressive behavior toward them, a pilot study. This is a whole other aspect of car brain that I'm not really going to dig into today, but it just shows you how multifaceted the condition is. And you've seen this exact dynamic if you've ever accidentally stumbled into the dark corners of Reddit or like Facebook comments. I mean, I don't even know if dehumanization is a strong enough word. It's like there's a baseline level of empathy or just basic humanity that you expect from your fellow citizens, and it's just nowhere in evidence. Okay, let's get to the meat of this thing. The researchers designed 5 pairs of questions very similar to the ones from the UK study to tease out aspects of windshield bias, and one or the other question from each of the 5 pairs was randomly assigned to 400 survey participants, and I'm just going to hit the highlights. I love this one. Half the participants were asked if they agree with the statement, "If someone leaves their belongings on the street and they get stolen, it is their own fault for leaving them there, and the police should not be expected to act." And the other half were asked, "If someone leaves their car parked on the street and it gets stolen, it is their own fault for leaving it there, and the police should not be expected to act." Respondents were pretty split on the first statement, but when the personal property in question was a car, there was almost universal disagreement with the statement. Leaving your car out in public space unattended is just seen as categorically different from any other kind of personal property. On the one hand, it seems absurd and maybe unwarranted that cars are afforded this elevated status, but also, as someone who was a car owner for most of my life, including a Honda Accord that was broken into like 5 times, I can identify with the particular feeling of violation that comes with that kind of crime. It's someone entering your personal space, rummaging through it, or maybe even stealing it altogether. And I think that's an important part of car brain, the idea that the car isn't just a possession, it's an extension of your home, and for a lot of people, maybe even an extension of your identity. Here's another question pairing that had a huge divergence. Almost 80% of respondents strongly agreed with the statement, "People should not smoke in highly populated areas where other people have to breathe in their cigarette smoke." The statement paired with it was, "People should not drive in highly populated areas where other people have to breathe in their car fumes." And only 2.8% of respondents strongly agreed, which, given the sample size, was probably like 5 or 6 people. And they all probably watch this channel, so hey. In fact, less than 20% agreed with it at all. So, just to summarize, carcinogens that are emitted from the end of a tube that's filled with tobacco, completely unacceptable. Carcinogens emitted from the end of a tube attached to a gasoline burning internal combustion engine, totally fine. I assume the difference here is smoking cigarettes is considered discretionary, and we already prohibit smoking in a lot of places, where driving in our society is considered mandatory, it's non-negotiable. Cigarettes are a vice, but driving is almost a virtue. People going to work or shopping or school in their personal vehicle, they're just being productive citizens. And I think that's why car brain or motonormativity exists, because for most Americans, a world without cars is unimaginable. They literally can't picture how life would work without them, so they never engage in any critical thinking about externalities or trade-offs the way they would with anything else that's obviously harmful, like cigarettes. Okay, before I move on, I do appreciate that you all watch my dumb YouTube videos. It keeps me entertained. But I also strongly encourage you all to read words written by smart humans. I always link my sources down the description, and special shout out to Dr. Tara Goddard and also Dr. David Levinson, the editor of Findings, the journal that published this piece. Dr. Levinson is an absolute giant in the field of transportation research, and if you really want to nerd out, you wouldn't go too far wrong reading just about any of the books he's written. They're dense and rich, just the way I like it. Look, I think part of the reason we have so many terms for this whole phenomenon is that it really is complex and multifaceted, and I'll probably come back with another angle on it in a future video. Like, an aspect of car brain that fascinates me is the power dynamic between drivers and non-motorized users of our transportation system, aka people just walking and biking. I'm interested in the extent to which driving a car is literally a position of power. Not just metaphorically, I mean actual horsepower, and size, and weight, and ability to inflict damage. I'm interested in the way power dynamics play out on our transportation system because things like speeding, yielding behavior, observance of traffic controls, I see all of these as micro negotiations between different system users, and like any negotiation, the party with more power and with a disproportionate ability to inflict damage, especially when there's seemingly so little liability, well, that party usually ends up setting the terms. And when it comes to car brain, I think the old saw that power corrupts has some explanatory power. In a lot of ways, our transportation system here in the US tends to play out a bit like the Stanford prison experiment, where drivers are the prison guards, abusive and sociopathic once they're in their designated role, and the rest of us just walking around minding our own business are the inmates. Well, that's my half-baked internal monologue anyway. Any smart viewers out there who have run across research that digs into this power dynamic aspect, drop me a line. I'd love to see it. You know, it's often said that humans are social creatures, but given some of the behavior we've talked about in this video, you do have to wonder. I think the truth is much more complicated. There's a whole spectrum of asocial or just socially awkward people. I may or may not be one of them. Now, social awkwardness can be debilitating, but it can also be highly entertaining. And with that, I have a content recommendation, The Dinner Plan. It's a very entertaining thriller comedy hybrid, and I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but our protagonist has to navigate a dinner party with his boss, his coworkers, and a pretty serious and violent food allergy. The Dinner Plan from creator Patrick Willems is a Nebula original, and I think it really sets a new standard for the kind of exclusive content you're going to find on the platform. Not just because of how much of the cast you might recognize from other shows you've seen, but in terms of the writing and production quality. So you might come to Nebula for great city planning, architecture, and engineering related content, but there's so much more on the platform, and the Dinner Plan is really just the beginning of the narrative and comedy driven content you'll find on Nebula. There's just so much variety on the platform. Whether you're in the mood for niche urbanism stuff, or you want to see the newest jet lag installments before everyone else, Nebula has you covered. For me, personally, being on the platform has been completely essential in terms of growing my channel and connecting with new audiences. So when you subscribe, yes, it means you get my content early and ad-free, but also subscribing really helps support what I do in a sustainable way, and it's also an investment in continuing to make the Nebula streaming experience itself better and better. Because yes, Nebula is kind of like Netflix for people who have an unhealthy fixation on trains, but on a deeper level, it's a home base for content that's a little more thoughtful, that's created by humans, for humans, which I think is more important than ever. And there's a pretty big idea behind all of it, raising the level of the entire platform and growing it into a prestige streaming service. So if you use my custom link down in the description or the QR code right here on screen, you're gonna get the best deal. All the Nebula content for 50% off the regular price when you sign up for an annual subscription, or you can do a lifetime subscription. Regular price is currently $500, but with my creator link, it's just $300. You pay once, and you get Nebula for as long as both you and Nebula exist. Nebula subscribers also get guest passes, one every month or 3 per quarter if you're on annual or lifetime. Once active, guests can binge all the Nebula content they want for a week, and no payment info is required. So signing up for Nebula really is a fantastic way to demonstrate your support for a one-of-a-kind creator-owned platform and to fund the continued production of amazing originals, and there's great new stuff hitting the platform all the time. So my recommendation, use my link or the QR code right here to get Nebula for 50% off on the annual price, or $300 for lifetime. Nebula is also offering 3-day free trials right now, so you can binge before you buy. It's nebula.tv/CityNerd, and I would go watch Patrick Willems' The Dinner Plan first thing. And that's all I've got. Thanks for joining today, and of course, thanks to the patrons whose direct support continues to open the door for lots of opportunities. I'll be getting out to lots of cities in 2026, well, a lot of cities that I haven't even been to since I started the channel, and that should generate some pretty interesting content. Keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll be back with a new episode later in January, and I'll see you then.